Hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of NBN Magazine's Hooked on Hoops podcast, brought to you by Triple Threat Collectibles. I'm your host, Patrick Pratt, along with my high school backup point guard, DT, Dinos Trigonis. And our special guest today will be Don Showalter from USA Basketball.
Don, welcome to the show here. Great to have you. You're one of the mainstays, one of the pillars of our basketball community. Obviously, there's very few people I respect any more than Don Showalter. He's started off as a very successful high school coach in Iowa and had history with the Snow Valley camps back in the day. Remember Snow Valley camp?
Yeah.
In Santa Barbara.
Nice. Okay.
And he's been doing this longer than me and got involved in USA Basketball, and now he's one of the big cogs in their wheel and one of the big influential actors in this space. Don, welcome to the show. We wanted to talk about the state of high school basketball. Right now, you do a lot with the USA teams that represent us at the 15, 16, 17 and under, 19 and under age groups. And, there's a lot of changes going on here, not just with high school, but with college that's impacting the levels that we're on. And I'm not sure we're in a good place right now, And I think we need reform at all levels. And obviously, you are a big person in that system. And I think you have some good insight for us for what you would like to see happen or advice, suggestions, etc.
Well, first of all, Dinos, Patrick, thanks for having me on. I really, obviously, Dinos, you have a lot of respect for what you do in the game of basketball across the board, or across the whole year, as far as having kids come in and being able to watch them and evaluate them, which is very significant. Sometimes we overlook that, but guys like you who do it the right way are certainly high on our list with USA Basketball to make sure we attend those events. So thanks for the introduction. Very humbled by it, but yeah, I mean, I've been in the high school scene, youth scene for a long time, over probably 50 years, 45 to 50 years total. Coached high school basketball for over 40 years here in Iowa, and then obviously working full-time now with USA Basketball. Director of Coach Development. So I do a lot of clinics around the country trying to educate coaches on how to teach the game to youth players. I also coordinate our U16, 17, 18, 19 players, evaluate them, pick them to come into our training camps, which will start here in May. And then also we have our U19 coming up in June as well. So very big summer for us from the, from the junior national team perspective. And we're just, trying to get the best of the best that we can get, as well as players and coaches for those teams. So we're kind of hot and heavy into that right now. And we just sent out invitations here just recently for our U16 players to attend our training camp.
Hey, Don, money's always been prevalent in this space, whether it's high school or college. And we know the old stories about the Dr. Detroits of Michigan and other people that have kind of focused on decades past, of the very elite guys. It seems like now with the NIL, that money element has kind of filtered down to a much wider area of players. But I think ultimately we have more than just the money issue here. We have a dysfunction, we have disorder, we have disorganization, we have chaos. How do we get to a better place here? And who's best positioned to help us get there? Because right now, there's so many people doing so many things. Like this upcoming weekend, we have a Mother's Day weekend, and yet people feel the need to have events on Mother's Day. And there's got to be some level of leadership that says, hey, sir, Easter, we're going to take it off, man.
Yeah.
Mother's Day, let's take it off.
Yeah.
Let's get to a place where we need that leadership. And it's got, in my opinion, it's got to come from USA Basketball. There's other people as well that can provide that. But we got to get to a better place because I see a downward trend. When I first started doing this, it was exciting. It was competitive. We have so many different circuits, people pretending to be sponsored, pretending to be a shoe company team, to fool their parents or to fool their kids into doing so. And everything's diluted, and we're not getting that competitive spirit that we see at your camps. And now, I'll be honest with you, I think the best events are the individual events because you have the ability to concentrate that talent, whether it's the USA Final Four mini camp, which was terrific in San Antonio, what you do with the under 16 and the other age groups. How do we get to a better place here where we interject some level of not quality, but also reality?
Well, if I had that answer, I'd write a book and become a millionaire immediately because I think there's a lot of people kind of searching for some answers on that. I'll back up. I've had a lot of relationships with the international programs and clubs. Yeah, we are very unique in the United States in our playing level for players. I mean, we started 7 years old or 6 years old or 5 years old, and they're not part of a club, so to speak, but they're part of. They can just anybody can bring them together and make a team. You really can't do that on the international level. You have to have a FIBA license, and you have to have some semblance of coaching in order to do that and have the kids play in tournaments. But like I said, we're so unique at USA Basketball, or excuse me, in the United States, because the kids can, there's so many that can just play. And a lot of it's driven by they play their schools. They'll play elementary school, they'll play middle school, they'll play high school. And that's not the case in the international level. So we have a lot of kids playing the game, which is good. We can't argue that that's not good. But it's hard to control. And I'm not sure, there are a lot of us that would like to control more in that space. But obviously we live in America where it's a free country and you can do kind of what you want to do. You can put organizations can put tournaments together to make money. That's the way they make money, which is fine. This is all about what we can do in America. And it's not the case anyplace else. Kids are part of a club. Like in Spain, they're part of, like, let's say Real Madrid, where Real Madrid has a club team. They start at the maybe 7, 8, 9-year-olds and bring them up through their club. But that's really restricting the level that how many can play. Because they're not going to take 100 kids in their club to play. So there's a good and bad with I think what we're doing and with what the international team is doing. We look back on before AAU came about, and I'm not, AAU is kind of a term that's really non-existent anymore because very few of the teams are members of the AAU program. But it used to be, Dinos, I'm sure you know that when Garf had his 5-star camp, everybody went to 5-star. Nobody played on a team in the summertime that could give them what they needed for basketball skill development or evaluation purposes other than going to a camp. And obviously Garf's 5-star was probably one of the best ones back in those days. But again, he could get all those players because they weren't involved in outside school organizations or club teams. We really tried from the USA Basketball standpoint. we certainly can't dictate when tournaments can be held. We just have guidelines, and we have licenses that coaches have to get in order for their team to be involved in the evaluation periods. So if a coach, like say from all the Adidas teams, EYBL teams, all the shoe company teams, they have to get a USA Basketball license in order to participate in those programs. That's not saying that that's the end result, but at least it gives some sort of semblance to that they are aware of, what's involved in becoming a coach and how that goes about.
Hey, Don, let's talk about that for a second, the license thing, because obviously most in America here, and you brought up a good point, AAU is kind of like the term Xerox. Most copiers are not Xerox, but we use Xerox because that's maybe the first copier, and it took hold.
Colloquialism.
Yes, exactly. But I think the issue here is most people go to the website and they get certified because for 3 weekends. Now for the AAU, for 3 weekends. And a lot of the educational materials are good. The sexual molestation and harassment education, I think, is good. But I think ultimately, there may be more room there for you guys to expand on. And if the calendar was maybe even a little bit more open, I think you could also include maybe mandatory attendance of a coaching session.
Yeah.
And maybe from, say, November to March.
Yeah.
And you offer a lot of them in a lot of different cities. You have to go to one. Because I think the key thing here is how do we weed out the people that have the bad intentions? I think by having a little bit better, more qualified qualifications and making them invest more time into it, there may be, I think, a possibility of us weeding those guys out, number one. Also for the June high school periods, my understanding is those are certified by the state association bodies and or coaching groups affiliated with those state associations. But they're not required to have the education an AAU coach like I do. I think there needs to be an education applied to that too, because a lot of the educational component that you guys have on those videos applies more to people like high school or prep coaches who have more involvement and interaction with these kids on a daily basis. When I coach a kid, and last weekend I was in Miami, the kids flew in, they flew out. It was 2 days, 3 days, right? I was with them during the games. They're in the hotel room the rest of the time. I'm not with them at the school the entire time. I'm not practicing with them once or twice a day. There's more, I think, opportunity, I hate to say it, for the problems that we're trying to prevent in those videos from happening on the full-time high school prep coaching to happen than it is for the AAU. That's not accusing anybody of anything. I just think that if we're going to have this educational program, and it's a good one, I concede that, we need to have it for the high school coaches too, because that would help spread the education to those areas. But also, importantly, I think too, and like you said earlier, you can't control everything, but if we had an ability for people that wanted to follow your rules, whether it's a local youth tournament, a regional one, or a national non-live, for their ability to put USA Basketball certified on there because they're making their coaches be certified under your supervision and criteria, I think that would go a long way, and it would kind of encompass have more of an impact. That's what I'm looking for, the word, more of an impact in promoting the type of values you guys and we want to promote.
Yeah. Well, Dinos, there's no question that you are spot on. I think the situation is we can't mandate anything to coaches. I mean, that's just, we can't do, we can suggest it. We can have, we can have now high school coaches who coach during the live period. If there's D1 coaches at the event, those coaches have to have a USA basketball license.
Well, that's not my understanding. I think a lot of them don't. I think they're certified through the high school certification. I don't believe any of them are required to do the videos and everything else. Or am I wrong?
Well, from our standpoint, if they're they have to have the license if they are if that's a live period. Yep. So any live periods, the coaches are required to have a license.
Okay.
Now, it used to be that way.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Okay, then I stand corrected then.
Yeah. But to go along with that, Dinos, and you raised some really great questions that we've discussed, and we've tried to figure out what's the best way to to reach more coaches. The license. So we have about 50,000 coaches that are licensed. And that doesn't say that they're, that they're the best coaches, but at least they have a little bit of training. We also have a lot of organizations, and we just started this about 5 years ago, have what we have some e-learning courses, and a lot of organizations now have they use our e-learning courses, like YMCA's, large organizations that run tournaments. They'll have their coaches. All right, they'll tell their coaches, you need to do these 4 e-learning courses. That one might be on, culture. One might be on how to teach. One might be on some X's and O's. So we're reaching some people that way as well. So, our situation is we're trying to really give some impetus behind coaches getting better and providing opportunities. I will say that, we haven't mentioned the parents in this whole thing. And if the parents would say, and I tell parents like this, I have a lot of sessions with parents, that if you would say, no, we're not, our son is not going to play on Mother's Day. Well, if enough people said that, then the organizers couldn't run a tournament that day. So I think it kind of goes back to what those parents will do in order to have their son be so-called evaluated or played. And I go back to the statement I made many times, is that our kids in the States, we play way too many games. I mean, we're playing, 60, 70 some games in the summertime outside of the high school season or their school season. So I look at the international team. We play about 6 games and practice once out of season for our tournaments. In the international game, they practice about 6 times for every 1 game they play. So it's just flipped. And so they're getting much better skill development. They're getting much better teamwork. They're getting much better players because they are spending more time not playing games and spending more time with the skill work and skill development.
Now, you hit on a point I was just about to make with the balance. How do we achieve that balance? And like you said, part of the answer is the parents, and not to pick on the next pro people there with the Puma circuit. They're making people travel on Mother's Day.
Yeah.
A week before the live period. There's teams from California that play under their umbrella, and they're flying from LA to Memphis this weekend on Mother's Day, coming back and flying to Wichita the next weekend. And like you said, where's the time to practice? Where's the time to rest? And where do we draw the line? And who can help us influence helping these parents draw the line? Because a lot of them, I think, are fearful to act on their own. It's almost like the ice cold plunge. It's 50 people waiting there on the cliff, and it just takes one guy to go in. But until that one guy goes in, the other 50 are hanging out at the edge. So how do we get to that balance there? And like you said, great point. I don't think we need to go to the European extreme But like you said, there should be a happy medium there of play a weekend, off
Yeah.
a weekend.
Yeah.
Play a weekend, off, train or rest a weekend.
Yeah. I see, again, Dinos, you raised a great point, but I see many, and I talk to parents all the time on this as well as coaches, but I see a lot of the injuries that are occurring from young players just due to the fact they're playing way too many games. They don't give their body time to rest. They don't give their body time to recuperate from playing. And
Are you talking about injuries with high school players, college players, or even up to the highest level? Because I'm looking at Evan Mobley. He's hurt right now. The Cavs had a week off, and all of a sudden he's hurt after one game. And I'm thinking about all those games he played, like we're talking about.
Yeah. And I think it's at all levels, really. I mean, we are, we're kind of saturated with games, and at some point, the injuries are caused because of the fact that kids don't have that time off to recuperate, to take care of the injuries. They come back too soon. I've seen it too many times, and I wish I had an answer how to combat that. I mean, the answer is we can't restrict people from not having tournaments. We can't restrict parents from taking their kids where they want to go. We just can't, we can't do that here in the States. But we just have to keep plugging away with the educational piece to it. Here's what's happening when your kid plays every weekend through June, July, and August. I mean, just is not good for him. So I really think the educational standpoint is really the only route we have, and we keep plugging away on that. And it's kind of like I say to organizations and parents and kids, hey, you're not here to change the whole scope of basketball. Just change a little bit in your area. So not every area thinks they have to have a tournament on Mother's Day or whatever. But that we just have to start in people's own backyard, so to speak, to make some changes. And because we're not going to restrict people from having events across the board all summer long.
Hey, Don, speaking about the European model for a second, and let's take their pro level. A team in the Euro League, like Olympiacos in Athens, they have one game a week with their EuroLeague team and one game in their National League. So they're playing 2 games a week versus 4 or 5. And Pat, like you indicated, the wear and tear has to be less because they have more time to recover, more time to get rest in, more time to attend to the other things other than the basketball. I'm not sure that the NBA can go to that extreme, but the college and high school level, I think we have more flexibility, especially in the summertime, because ultimately I think the key thing is promoting quality over quantity. It's better to have 20 good games, quality games, than 70 bad games.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all seen it. So you raised a great question, great point too. We see it from our USA basketball standpoint is that the competitive level of players is not as good as it used to be. We're bringing in the elite of the elite players for our training camps. They're competitive in that situation, but I go watch them in other situations, and their competitive attitude, nature is not near what it is when they're playing against the best of the best. So I think the competitive piece to it is really missing in some of the kids. Scouts, the first thing scouts ask me about players, and when you talk about the NBA draft, I think this comes up frequently, is how the number one question is, do they compete? How competitive are they? And when that, and I could give you a list of players who are really, really good, but they had no competitive nature when they were with us, and now they're either didn't get drafted or they're out of the league or whatever, just because they couldn't compete. So the more games you play, kind of the less competitive you are. And we try and really.
I think part of that too is that you have all these different circuits, all these different pretenders, and there's very little, because they go every weekend. there's very little wiggle room for interaction, for people to play against other guys they normally don't see. Give you an example, my camp the last couple of years, for some odd reason, Adidas wants to take 10, 15 guys to Europe in the middle of the school year, in the middle of Memorial Day, for what there's no, no American scouts there that I'm aware of. Maybe they're auditioning for European jobs, but I'm not sure what's really going on there. It's just this thing is getting too segregated. I hate to use that word. In USA basketball, in maybe the NBA PA camp, maybe my camp, are the few opportunities, maybe the high school season, to have that interaction for competitive reasons.
Yeah, you're so right, Dinos, and I think that's one of the things I really prefer when I go evaluate players. I'll go to a lot of events, as you know, but I really like to go during the high school season and watch a kid play during their high school season. I think that tells me more about that player, how he reacts to his coach, how resilient is he, how versatile is he when he's playing with his high school team? Is he, how skilled are they? How smart, are they? So I really put a lot of emphasis on. All right, I'll see a kid this summer, and then I'll make a note. Hey, I want to see him during the high school season next year, because I think that's really where I see where I can tell what kind of player they are, more so than playing on a UIBL team.
Hey, Don, I want to talk about one more different subject here about the USA basketball operation. And give you an example. I started a Euro camp 2 years ago. That was very good. Our MVP, Noah Penda, is projected to be a first-round NBA draft pick this year.
Yep.
And I was talking to one of my Greek contacts over there, and their federation had an opening for a president. They had an election for a president. So I asked the guy, how do you decide this role? Who gets to be president of your federation? He said something very peculiar I never really heard before. He said every club team in Greece has one vote.
Yeah.
Whether it's the EuroLeague team, Pat, that has billionaire owners, or the local club team at Victoria Park, I have one vote. And that's kind of democracy. Now, obviously, we don't have that same system. But I really think that people at USA Basketball, whether it's Sean Ford, Grant Hill, and others, yourself, need to really kind of address this subject, because we are required to be certified to play in the NCAA live events. We're required to pay money. Okay?
Yeah.
I think it would be good for us to have some type of involvement, more so than what we have here. It doesn't mean that we vote you out of office because we wake up one morning and you lose that one game out of 1,000 in FIBA competition. You know what I mean? And we're pissed about it. But there's got to be some, I think, input or ability for the average guy who's licensed to feel more part of you. Maybe that guy has a normal team. Maybe his top guys aren't good enough on a regular basis to be invited to your mini camp, but he's still under your umbrella. You want him to toe the line and to help make the entire basketball better. I think there's a need here to develop some type of input or some type of council to where people participate more, so they can feel more invested, have more skin in the USA game, because USA basketball is a terrific thing. These kids representing our country is a terrific thing, but I think it's missing that element, the democratic element that I think it needs to have in the future.
And Dinos, you're exactly right, and I'm taking some notes while you're talking too. But we have started. I do a lot of. I mean, I go out and give coaching clinics to YMCA's, to organizations that have a lot of coaches in their system, and so that's one way that we're kind of getting coaches at least under our umbrella, and viewing what we do and viewing what they do is important. Second thing, just the last couple of years, we started a middle school. We call it gold camps, We have 3 of them this year, Phoenix and Omaha and Pittsburgh, where we have about 200 boys, 200 girls per camp, and we call it our USA Basketball Gold Camp. So we're trying to get the youth players indoctrinated to a little bit of USA Basketball, and we encourage. I mean, we certainly encourage. That's why I try to get out to a lot of events. I go to your events. I go to a lot of events, just to get so people see that we are supporting kids.
You do a terrific job. And then what I was referring to specifically is creating vehicles to where right now, if somebody's pissed off about something, there's no 800 number to call. Or like, the slogan in the airport, see something, say something. If somebody sees something doing a bad thing, there needs to be some accountability to somebody. You guys are aware of it, so maybe you can address it. I think there's got to be some type of vehicle, not necessarily to replace what is already created, but to allow more feedback so you guys know what's really going on the ground. But more importantly, that person who pays that $55 or that late fee to be certified, he feels part of, more strongly connected to what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
I think it would go a long way.
Hey, just Dinos, give him my number. I think everybody has my number, so just tell them to call me.
Okay, great having you, Don. Appreciate you coming on the show.
Thanks, Dinos, Patrick. You guys do an awesome job. I love your podcast, and I love to come to your events, Dinos. So you do a great job.
We love having you there.
We'll get this thing kind of hopefully take some of the mess out of it eventually.
All right. Pleasure to converse with you, Don.
Take care, Patrick.
You
Dinos.
too.